Hey everyone, I'm Danny and welcome to Wizardry Workshop. This is another collaboration with Darkest Raven Designs. If you're not familiar with Darkest Raven Designs, it's run by Chantel and she is here on YouTube. Just search for Darkest Raven Designs or use the link that I put in the description box. I'm also going to link to her other social media so you can go ahead and check out Darkest Raven Designs. She does some really cool crafts over there, so definitely check her out. This video is a premiere. Darkest Raven Designs video is also a premiere, and we're premiering at the same time. So I will be in both chats as best as I can. Chantel is also going to be in both chats as she can. In this video, we're going to do something very similar to the potions that we did last time. So basically, I designed a bunch of labels for these potions, and I've sent them to her, and we're both kind of independently making bottles for these potions. It's not a competition, it's just we want to, see what the other person comes up with, just for fun. The potion here, the main potion, is called Hell-Broth, and it's themed after the song that we hear in Harry Potter, which is actually a poem from Macbeth. So it's the double, double, toil and trouble song. Fire burn and cauldron bubble. I'm sure that you know which one I'm talking about. So I did labels for the main Hell-Broth potion, which is what it's called in the poem, and then I also did labels for 10 different ingredients that go in this potion. You can download the templates for these labels for free in the description box below, or if you'd like to purchase a print so that you don't have to waste your ink or whatever, you can go ahead and go over to my Etsy shop, and that's where I'm selling prints of these labels as well. And yes, I am wearing my custom Potions Club shirt. If you'd like to join the Potions Club, the membership just costs the value of the shirt, so just go buy a shirt. Links in the description box. Down there you're also going to find links to all the supplies I use to make these potions. Let's get started. Of course, there are templates which I've designed, and this is for all the little different ingredient labels that you need and the main Hell-Broth label right here. Depending on how you're planning to prepare the labels and everything, it might be easier to print this on sticker paper. I printed mine on plain white printer paper because I'm planning on doing something different with this. I'm gonna rip them out, and it's not gonna be easy to rip sticker paper. There are 11 labels in total, one large one here, as you can see. These two are a little bit wider, and then the other 8 of these are just squares. So you need 10 small bottles and 1 large bottle. So before we do anything with the labels, let's worry about the bottles. All right, where's the rest of my bottles? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Where are my bottles? So I got all these different little bottles here, and each one is kind of, a different shape. We've got a round one and a square one, and then this one's more like a tube. So, and yeah, just different shapes. I wanted mine to look a little bit random so that they weren't all the exact same bottle. An old apothecary, all the bottles are gonna look different. And I just realized I have 9 bottles here, so luckily I have a lot of backup potion bottles, so I'll be using this one, and this is my 10 bottles. Now, as for the larger bottle, I have this one, which I purchased. You can get all the bottles I got here, plus this one at local craft shops. You're gonna find them there. I will also link some bottles. They might not be exactly the same, but I will link them, Amazon links in the description box. We're gonna do something special with this one, so I'm gonna set it aside. But all of the smaller bottles we're gonna prepare in the same way. So to start off, what you're gonna do, and I highly recommend you do this outside. I'm just gonna show you a little bit here inside, and then I'm gonna go outside and do the rest of them out there. We need some coarse sandpaper. And then the idea here is just to scratch the bottle up, especially around the edges and stuff. We're gonna just scratch it up. And this should be pretty quick, especially with the heavier sandpaper. All these bottles I've scratched up. So you can kind of see all those little scratches on there, on that one, and then this one, you can see the scratches. Now, I know they're not very visible yet, but what we're going to do next is kind of bring the scratches out by putting some of these alcohol inks onto this. We're just going to sort of splatter them around and, just make them look kind of old and splattered and scratched. I'm going to start off with this chocolate color. So I'm just going to put a few drops in there. I'm just going to sort of paint some of this on here as well, like this. And then take a towel and sort of spread it and wipe it around. And it's going to give the bottle a bit of a tint, as you can see here. And that should also bring out some of the scratches that you made in your bottles. And you can get some pretty cool looking like textures and things just by sort of wiping this and the way that you apply it with your brush. The inks sort of go into the little scratches that you made and, you know, bring them out a bit. So after doing that, you can see the bottle, you can see all the scratches in there. Yeah, it looks a bit older, a bit more used. I'm going to do two different colors of splattering, I think. I'm going to do this caramel color, and then I'm also going to do a little bit of that mint green to see how that looks. I'm also going to splatter some of this chocolate color on there too. It's a bit darker, so I kind of like it more. Now let's see how this mint green looks. It kind of looks like they've been in a potions class or a witch's little brewing room. Okay, there we go. Now we will let those dry and start on the bigger bottle. We're going to do something different that I've never really done before. First, we need some clear glue. Take that clear glue and brush it on to the entire surface of our bottle. And this is going to give the outside of our bottle a bit of a texture to prepare it for the next step. And the next step is it's gonna be like magic almost. All right, now once the entire surface of this bottle is covered in glue, we have to wait for this to dry. So let it set for, I'd say, at least a half hour. This bottle is pretty much dry, and you can really barely tell that there's anything on it, but there is glue dried to the outside of this bottle. So now it's time for the secret ingredient. We are going to use this Distress Crackle paint. And this is clear rock candy. You've got to make sure that you get that kind so it'll look kind of like distressed glass, cracked glass and stuff like that. So this is what we're going to use. And we're going to put this all over the outside of the bottle on top of the glue that's already dried. And just do the same thing you did before. We're going to grab a brush and just put a coat of this on the outside of the bottle. And this coat, you can do it pretty thick. The thicker you do it, I think larger the crackle looking stuff will be. And then the thinner you do it, the smaller the cracks will be. So yeah, we're just gonna go ahead and paint over basically the entire bottle with this Distress Crackle paint. We want this bottle to dry completely, so I'm just gonna set it aside and let it dry. And while that's drying, we can start working with what's going to go inside of these bottles, which are already dry now. So we're going to make liquid that's going to go inside of these containers, these bottles. And I want the liquid to look kind of like, almost like a yucky water or a formaldehyde, because I'm going to have the ingredients for this potion kind of stuck in those bottles. Get some water in each one of these. We do need them to be separate. And then we're going to put some water in a larger container. And in one, we will do yellow, just a drop. And in the other, we will do green. Whoops, that was 2 drops. That's okay. And then we'll mix this up. So we've got some green water and we've got some yellow water. And now what we're going to do is try to get the tint in the larger container about where we want it. So we just want to pour a little bit of the yellow in there. And then a tiny, tiny bit of the green. The green is going to be like almost overpower the yellow, but you don't want it to. You just want, yeah, that's about the right color. It looks very neon in the camera, I can see, but in person, it's a lot more dull. I could even put a little bit more yellow in there. And that's about the color that I'm going to go for right there. And then I want to thicken this up quite a bit. So I'm going to take some clear glue again, and I'm just gonna pour a bunch in here, and then I'm gonna mix it up until it's completely dissolved. And you might lose a little bit of your color. If you do, it's easy to just add a little bit more. I'm gonna go just a tiny bit more yellow with mine. A trick that I've learned to get rid of bubbles sitting on the top of liquid is to use a little torch for lighting a fire. It could even be a culinary torch, like a little handheld one. And if you just really quickly go over the top, then all the bubbles are gone. Now let's talk about the actual ingredients. Let's go with the easier ones first. Leg of lizard. What I did was I went out and I got these plastic lizard reptile toys. And luckily it also came with snakes, which we're gonna use as well. And I'm going to cut their legs off. You can even cut parts of their tails off just to fill up the jar a bit more if you need to. Sorry, lizards. And it doesn't matter which bottle I use, I'm just gonna grab one at random, and we're gonna put the lizard's legs inside of the bottle, like this. So you can see there's a bunch of little lizard bits in there. You could just leave them in there just dry like that, and that could be your lizard's legs, but I think it's gonna look a lot kind of grosser to put the liquid in there with it. So let's see. And you know, the ingredients are gross, so we want them to look gross. Put the cork in this one and we'll set it aside. Actually, I just realized I need this to be in a different container because these are for the larger labels. So I messed up. I'm gonna swap it over into this one. There, that's better. For this one, we're gonna do the fillet of fenny snake. You've probably guessed it. We're going to cut the heads off of these snakes so that they're just the bodies. And then these are all gonna get jammed in that jar together to give it a look like it's got a whole bunch of little baby snakes in it. And now with a little bit of our prepared liquid, and we cap it off, and there's your little jar of snake fillets. Now let's do the adder's fork. So I'm just gonna grab another random bottle here, and an adder's fork is the forked tongue of a snake. So I'll go ahead and take these from the toys just to have them, I guess, but we're gonna use something different for most of these. We're gonna use some red rubber bands. The thing is, no one is going to notice if they're forked or not. They're just gonna see a whole bunch of little red tongues inside of your bottle. So just get as many red rubber bands together as you can, and then we're just going to cut them into smaller pieces like this. And they look like little tongues. If you really want to go through the trouble of making them all little forked tongues, you can, but I'm telling you, with all of them together in that jar, no one is going to look close enough and say, those aren't forked. The thicker ones, I did decide to go ahead and make them look forked. I just used scissors to cut that just because they stand out a bit more than the smaller ones in the bottle. Again, let's pour the liquid in. There's what the adder's fork looks like. Next, let's do the tongue of dog. And I know that sounds really gross. And what's even more gross is that I ordered some fake tongues on Amazon. And yeah, they look like little tongues. They're pretty gross, very stretchy. But I think I'm gonna use this taller bottle for these tongues. They're just gonna look better in the taller bottle. So yeah, I'm just gonna stuff them in there. Oh, this looks so gross. And in goes the liquid. Oh, it's even more disgusting with the liquid in there. Oh, yuck. That's probably the most realistic and disgusting one that I have made so far. And I guess I'll save these two tongues for, I have no idea what. All right, next let's do Blindworms Sting. This is another one that I ordered on Amazon. And it's basically little grub worms, but it's for fishing. It's like a fishing tackle or lure or bait. I don't fish, and they are fake, by the way. They're not real mealworms, although those were available. Ew. Oh my God, that's so gross. Add the liquid. And that's what that looks like with the liquid in there. I might need to make the liquid a little bit more green. As you can see, you can still change the color of your liquid even after putting it in the jar just by getting a little bit more of the food-colored water in there. That's much better with that little green tint. For the next few ingredients, we have to get a little bit more creative. So I have here my hot glue gun, and as you can see, I do have green glue loaded into it. So what we're doing right now is toe of frog. I don't know if baking parchment would work, possibly, but this is the backing to like a sticker paper after I've already pulled the sticker off. This type of paper is perfect for this because the glue will just peel right off of it after it dries. And what we're gonna do is use the hot glue gun to do a little glob of glue and then just sort of pull it back a bit and then do a tiny little glob like that. So it's just like a little frog toe is what we're trying to do. Now, once you have them all lined up on your paper like that, we're going to get something to sort of roll the paper over so that the frog's toes are kind of curled a little bit as it dries. And it'll dry pretty quick. See, if you can see, that first one is already peeling up and off the paper because it's already dried. Just get a couple of little weights and then we just wait for that to dry. They don't look perfect, but I think they definitely could pass as toe of frog, especially when you look at them like this. That looks like a little frog's foot, sort of. Anyways, yeah, that's what we're doing. So make enough of these to fill up one of your jars. I've made some green ones and some yellow ones, but you know, you can do whatever colors you want. And let's add the liquid. These actually kind of float in there. Next, we're going to do the Howling Wing. And for this, we are going to need our glue gun again. And then I also have some feathers that we're going to stick to it to make it look like a wing. The idea is basically have your feathers ready to go, and we're going to make the shape of a wing. You can look this up if you need to. I'm just going to like kind of go off of memory that a wing looks a bit like this. And then I'm going to fill in the inside of this as well. And then while the glue is still wet, we're going to glue feathers onto it like this and that. Try to save the bigger ones for like the end of the wing, maybe like this. Once it feels like it's cooled off enough and the glue might be dry, go ahead and flip it over and peel the wing off. And then we're just going to put a tiny bit more glue on this side and then glue some feathers down there as well. It's not a perfect wing, but I think once it's kind of like in there, you're not going to be able to really tell. So let's go ahead and just drop a couple of feathers in first. And then I'm going to just force this wing into the jar. In goes the liquid. And there is our Howling Wing. And now for Eye of Newt. For this, I am going to use a different glue stick. This time it will be glow in the dark. So yes, these will be glow in the dark Newt eyes, basically. Let's put some little just globs. Once these dry, you should have these little pieces like this. And with two of these pieces, you can attach them flat side to flat side there. You could even put, if you need to, a little glob of glue in between. And then you've got this little sort of glow in the dark eyeball thing. I'm going to drop them into this little container here. And there we have our Eye of Newt. You could even use this same method for some kind of eggs like fairy eggs or Grindylow eggs or something like that if you wanted to. The eggs do glow pretty well. It's hard to keep it in focus in this low light though. Okay, so now we need baboon's blood, and this is going to be our last wet ingredient. I'm just going to go ahead and use what I have here already, And I'm going to add some red to it because that should make it a nice blood color. Just add more. Add enough to make it really dark. There we go. Now it's turning a blood red. We may need to make a little bit more, but let's find out. So I'm just going to use this bottle for the baboon's blood. Here we go. And there is our little bottle of baboon's blood. And then the very, very last thing we're going to need is the wool of bat. And it's going to go in another one of these little circular looking bottles. We just need some fake fur, some faux fur. I'm actually just going to cut a little square of this out, and then I'm just gonna stuff it in there like that. And then there's my wool of bat. Really easy. And then we have wool of bat in a jar. And finally, let's get back to our large bottle. So it is pretty much dry. We can continue on with this. And if you look up close, you can see what that Crackle paint did to it. It looks like it has a bunch of little crackles or maybe even cracks and things in the glass. But that's just what the paint does when it dries. And we put the glue on first because without the glue, it doesn't do what it's supposed to do because it needs something to like hold on to and shrink sort of as it dries. So you could have done paint, but we did glue to keep it nice and transparent. To color this one, we're going to do the same type of thing. I'm going to use some of this alcohol ink just to color it. You could use paint. This is going to actually color the bottle a lot more than it did the others because it has that distress paint on top. So the alcohol ink is really going to get on there. So this bottle is going to look pretty brown. And I'm going to splatter it as well. So we'll see what we can do there. But I'm just going to get it nice and painted. Basically paint it and blot it. Okay, I'm also going to splatter it a bit. And now we are just going to let this all sit and dry, and then we'll come back to it. So the next thing that we're going to do to all of these different bottles. First, you need some jute cord. And yes, we're just going to be wrapping the jute cord around the top. And then to start off, you want to do a loop just like this. And then you're going to take that loop and place it on the edge of your bottle right here where you want to start wrapping the twine. And then you're going to wrap around once like that. And then just keep wrapping the twine around it. You should come to a point when you don't have to hold that loop anymore. So right now we're just wrapping it. And then we can just cut that down a little bit, and you'll take the end of your jute cord or twine and put it through the loop like this. And then you're going to start pulling on this bottom cord. And as you can see, it's going to start tightening that little loop just like that. And now it's fully tightened. You can trim down the cord, and then you can either just leave it like this, or you can use something to tuck the twine in. But that's basically what we're doing here. Use a torch or a lighter to sort of singe all the little hairy fuzziness off of the cord. And it also gives it a cool vintage look. The labels aren't actually going to stick on the rounded surface properly. They're going to get wrinkled and all that type of stuff. So we're going to do it a little bit different for the rounded ones for that purpose. By rounded, I mean the ones that are kind of circular. So for the rounded ones, we'll start it the same, again with a loop, and go ahead and start wrapping the jute cord around. Once you have just about as much twine as you want on there, get yourself a smaller piece of twine, put it behind the twine that you're wrapping around, and just let it sit there for now. Now let's go ahead and finish this part off. We did that with these pieces of twine because those are going to help us tie the label on to the bottle. It's going to be like a tag. Another thing we're going to do with all of our bottles is we're going to sort of stain the cork a little bit. I'm going to use this distress ink. This is ground espresso distress ink. With a brush or a sponge, you want to get some of that, and then you're just going to sort of make that cork look a little old and dirty around the edges and stuff. Let's go ahead and do this to all of our bottles. So I'm going to cut these out with a ruler and X-Acto knife just to get them initially cut out. If you want to cut them nice and straight, I do have some cut guidelines in there that you can see where you would just line up your ruler and cut with your X-Acto knife. But I'm going to cut them out all the way to the edge where the image ends. I had a little accident right there. I accidentally ripped the paper with my X-Acto knife. It must have gotten snagged on something, but that's okay because I'm planning on ripping these out anyway. Now when we get to this point when there's all these just smaller little cuts, I'm just going to use my scissors. So with the labels kind of cut out but with a lot more space around the edges than I want, I am going to just tear them each down to size like this so that the edges are imperfect. We don't want perfect edges, or at least I don't for what I'm doing. And there we go. We have just a torn out label now. I am going to use a little bit of distress ink around the edges because where I tore it, you can see some white. And I don't really want that white on there, so I'm just going to sort of make it a little more messy around the edges. And this is going to be my process for all of the labels, except for the ones that are going to be like tags, which we'll get into next. But for the ones that aren't tags, we're going to rip them out. We're going to go ahead and put some of that distress ink around the edges so that it's not white where it's been ripped. And then we can take it and stick it onto our little potion jars, just like this. So we have the Howling Wing right here, and you can see the inside has like feathers and what looks like might be a gross wing. Now for the ones that are going to be tags, such as the Babos Blood, I'm actually going to take a piece of cardstock and I'm going to glue that one on here and then cut it out again so it's a bit thicker. So I'm going to go ahead and glue on all the ones that are needing tags. I suppose I could have customized my templates so that only the ones I wanted to be cardstock were printed separately, but I wanted to do it the way you guys will do it because this is what you're going to see when you download the template. I didn't want to have something different than what you have. Now we will let those dry. And now, same deal, once they're dry, I'm going to tear them out. And then we also, with the cardstock ones, want to use this distress ink to sort of hide those edges of the white paper that have been torn. And then one extra step for these, you do also want to flip it over and make the back look really dirty too. Because if not, it's going to be a very clean white piece of paper and it will look strange compared to the rest. To get the label onto the extra twine that I've put here, you need to pop a hole in it. You can do that with a hole punch if you think that that would be okay. I think that hole would be way too big though. I just want a hole that this will fit in pretty well. So I'm just going to use this little tool that I have here. Now we just want to thread it through that little hole, just like this. And then we're going to tie a knot on the other side. Get it up kind of close to the edge of the bottle there, and then just do another knot underneath. So that's a double knot underneath like this. And then we have our label that's just kind of like a tag right there on the outside of the bottle. And at this point we can trim down the extra twine we don't need. And we have Babos Blood. Now let's go ahead and do all the labels. Go ahead and rip this one out too and do the distress ink around the edges. Now for the big bottle. It's turned out, I think, looking pretty cool, like old cracked glass. But we do have to put something inside of it. Even though you can't see it too well, it is still somewhat transparent. So really what I want is just a liquid that is like dark. So I am going to go ahead and mix some up in this bucket. We're gonna need some glue just to make it kind of thick. We'll need some water. So first, let's put some green in there. I am now going to put 1 drop of red in. Yeah, it is no longer a bright green. It is now a very dark looking green. Now we can fill this big jar with some of this liquid. That bottle is so dark, you're not really going to be able to see much of anything anyway. It's probably just going to be a very dark thing. So there we go. And you can tell there's something in there, like I said, just a dark liquid. I guess it wouldn't have mattered what color. It could have been brown, because you can't tell if it's green or anything. But maybe against the light, you might be able to see it, like if there's light coming from behind it. Yes, you can definitely see the green if there's a light shining from behind it. So the cork for this one, as you can see, it just looks like a normal cork. But I wanted something unique for this bottle. So I went on eBay and I found this, and it's like this coiled snake on the top of a cork. The cork doesn't actually fit in there, and I knew that when I bought it, but I'm going to chop the bottom of that cork off and glue it to the cork that does fit. So it's just, should be as simple as this. Just using a little hand saw to saw the cork off. So that snake's gonna sit on top there just like that. All I need to do is glue it. You can use hot glue, you can use super glue, I mean, whatever. It doesn't matter. As long as it's glue, it will stick. Not a glue stick though. I've just stuck it right on the top, and then I'm going to try and remove any of that extra glue. There we go. So now we have that coiling snake on top of the cork. We'll use a little bit more of this distress ink to make this cork look a little more old and worn. And now it's all just a matter of gluing this on. And I'm going to make sure that it's glued on with the snake at a good angle, so that when we're looking at the front of the bottle, we see the snake. I am also going to use some of the jute cord on this as well, the same way that we did before. I don't think I need to go over it again. We already did. There you have it, guys. It is hard to get all these little potions and this big one in a good shot just like this at my table. But here is the Hell-Broth with 10 ingredients to actually make the potion. I also created a really cool art print with the entire poem from Macbeth on it, which I'm going to show you here in just a second. It's a download for patrons. You can cut it out or just print it out and keep it as an art print on your wall somewhere near this. I'm also selling prints of it on my Etsy shop, so I'm going to show you that in a minute. But first, let's take a good look at each one of these potions at a better angle. So here is the Hell-Broth. And as you can see, it has the crackle effect, that nice texture over it. And there's the label and the coiled snake on top of the cork. I was just really happy to find that on eBay. It seemed perfect for a Hell-Broth potion. Now let's take a look at all the different ingredients. So here's Howling Wing. And that's what it looks like on the inside, just kind of gross feathers. We also have Lizard's Leg here. And there you can see all the lizard bits inside. And here's the Wool of Bat label. And all the kind of fur inside there. Adder's Fork. Looks like this. Fillet of Fenny Snake. toe of frog, baboon's blood, eye of Newt, and last but definitely grossest, tongue of dog. I've also created a print for the Song of Witches that you can purchase on my Etsy shop, or if you are a patron, you can download this for free just for being a patron. So here we go. This is the print, but let's take it out so that you can see it without a glare. So here is the Song of Witches, and the entire Macbeth poem is integrated into this design. So, and that includes all the different ingredients that you see in this video. So yeah, that's it. Let me know what you guys thought of all these potion ingredients and this potion. Let me know what you think about that Crackle paint, because I really liked it. That Distress Crackle paint, clear rock candy is what I used, and it turned out really cool in my opinion. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching this video, and I'll see you in the next one.